So I made a video last year talking about how Party Finder was kinda dead in Final Fantasy XIV if you didn't play on your region's preferred raiding data center. I'm sure that most of NA remembers being forced to go to 8 there if you wanted to do any high-end content like Savage, which really sucked. This meant that you would lose access to your home, retainers, your free company, time gathering nodes, as well as all of your link shells and friends that you might have. We got some new changes to data center travel in Dawntrail, and most people were either happy or really pissed, and it depends entirely on how you like to raid. Originally at the launch of Dawntrail, data center travel was completely locked, only allowing you to go to the overflow data centers like Dynamis in NA and Shadow in EU. This meant that while it was harder to play with friends that weren't in your region, you actually got to see parties available for EX1 and 2 without having to go anywhere. A lot of people enjoyed this, and I saw so many people happy to raid from their homeworld. For the most part, things were good with the necessary promise of data center travel opening up once Savage dropped. Savage releases when things got really messy. During maintenance on the night before Savage released, Square released completely new data center travel rules out of nowhere. Instead of fully opening travel back up, it became restricted based on the congestion and world status. If you didn't already know, every world in Final Fantasy XIV has a status based on population. You can check the status of a world on this webpage here. The possible statuses of a world are new, preferred, standard, and congested. New and preferred are mostly the same in that they have lower populations, and Square wants to encourage new players being made here with bonuses if you do. The bonuses also apply to people who transfer to these as well. Congested means that the world is pretty crowded and that character creation is blocked. If a world is standard, there's nothing really special about it. However, with the new data center travel rules, these statuses matter a lot more. It's a little confusing, so I'll try to explain it as clearly as I can. When data center traveling, congested worlds have very limited capacity. This is why you might see certain worlds being blocked out on the travel list at times. What's confusing is that if a standard world is on the same data center as a congested world, the capacity is also limited. If a world is new or preferred, the travel capacity is increased. The problem, and we're going to use NA as an example, is that the only new and preferred worlds are on Dynamis. Because the launch of a Savage tier means that a ton of people are logging in, especially on the first raid tier, this led to a ton of issues. Pretty much everybody in a static that had members on different data centers had to travel to Dynamis. And this is where we get to our next issue. The data center travel system is what I'd call kind of primitive. When you commit to traveling, there's no cancel button. You're stuck waiting until the travel process completes. If a lot of people are traveling, this might take some time. On Savage Day, this meant hours. This is really bad because lots of people take time off from work, and that is super valuable. When you're in a static, you're carefully balancing the schedules of 8 different people at once. Because of this situation, a lot of statics couldn't raid at all on release. Imagine having only a few hours to raid and being stuck in queue the entire time. Now stack that with the fact that the queues themselves were having issues keeping people connected. A lot of people were crashing out of the queue. With the way that data center travel works, this meant being automatically inserted back into the same multi-hour queue that you just crashed out of. So not only could you not raid with your static, many people just couldn't play the game at all because they were stuck in limbo. This was kind of a disaster, but weirdly, a lot of people did kind of benefit from this, and it's important to talk about that too. While this situation sucks for statics as well as people who want to raid with friends on different data centers, it has been really good for the average Party Finder player for the most part anyway. As a Prowler resident, I've been loving the fact that Party Finder is actually alive. This was especially a big deal as a crafter since it meant that I could actually interact with the market board to sell gear and raid when I felt like it. While it sucks that people were stuck in queue, it was nice that every player not on Aether didn't have to wait to get in and raid because the day 1 queue to get into Aether was always terrible. The queue issue isn't a new problem, it's an existing one that got shifted to different people. Having no parties up is also terrible for new players looking to get into Extremes and Savage, since they won't know why no one else is playing the content that they want to check out unless someone tells them. Real quick, if you made it this far, I just wanted to mention that if you like reading, I also talked about this in an article on my website, thestudium.gg. It's a new website for Final Fantasy XIV guide content and news coverage. I'm hoping that it can not only turn it into a valued resource, but also have a double as a way for people to keep up with the game and its community, even if they don't like watching videos. I'd really appreciate it if you checked it out. Anyway, all that said, I don't think that this is a great permanent solution. Certainly having everyone all in one data center for raiding had its benefits. Having lots of parties and people to play with was great. It gave you way more options and parties would just fill faster. And as the tier slows down as more and more people stop raiding, this becomes a bigger issue over time. My suggestions are if Square is keeping this around for later tiers, they need to really improve how data center travel works. There should be a feature that sends you to any world with space in a data center. Most people don't care about what world they're on if they're traveling to Dynamis to raid anyway. There should be a feature to auto-populate worlds instead of locking people out of queue for one congested world when the rest are empty. A lot of people were also caught off guard because they didn't give people enough time to prepare. In the past, you knew to travel early to Aether so that you weren't caught in the wave of people who were late. This announcement should have been days before the Savage tier released, and not a few hours before. This way people could have traveled to Dynamis in advance so that they'd be ready to raid with their statics. Yoshi P said that a unified party finder feature is in the works, but that it would take 2 to 3 years to actually finish. That's why they're experimenting with temporary solutions like this in the first place. I'm sure that with feedback, they will find ways to improve things over time. I just hope that they can finish the unified party finder sooner rather than later, because that's the only way that everyone will actually be happy if you ask me. Anyway, take care homies, and I'll see you in the next video.